Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by on my channel, Lady Bitterness Astrology and Tarot. A few things before we get started with the weekly forecast. This channel, we're going to be talking about Western tropical astrology. So we go by the equinoxes and solstices, not the constellations. Just want to clear what kind of astrology we're practicing so that everyone's on the same page. Also, a little bit about myself. I have always been interested in astrology, but a couple of years ago, I decided to go professional, and so that is why I'm releasing these videos. The Bitter Truth weekly forecast is going to be every week. I'm just going to post my thoughts, my opinions, my interpretations of what the weekly transits look like to me, and how I think that they'll apply to us in our lives, both in general, globally, and on an individual level. Quick thing to point out is that I am just speaking about how I interpret the transits. They're my opinions and feelings. And so if something doesn't resonate, that's really okay. Not everything is going to resonate because this is really for everyone. So just keep that in mind. You always have your own autonomy. You can always use what you want from what I say, but you don't have to. Okay, so let's get into the week then. This week is going to be April 4th through April 10th of 2022. So the lunar phase this week is what I call the experimental phase. It's the week leading up to the full moon. We're going to have a first quarter moon this week, which is basically, to me, the initial steps we take, the first step we take towards something, towards moving forward with something, whether it be a project or a task that we have to do or an interview we have to have, or whatever the next step is to moving forward in a certain way. That's what this week is about. I call it the experimental phase of the lunar cycle because it's about being open to trial and error. It's about working with what you have and seeing what comes from it. So we're most likely going to see some success and some setbacks with this phase. So that's what this week, the overall vibe of this week is going to kind of be. Now we can get into the weekly events. So the most significant transits that I think are happening this week. There are just a few, but I still think it's going to be a pretty intense week. The first thing I want to talk about is right out of the gate, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we're going to be feeling Mars and Saturn closely conjunct, actually exactly conjunct together at 22 degrees of Aquarius. And they're going to both be squaring the nodes, North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, as we've been talking about. What does this mean to me? I think that Mars is very much about our personal will, our personal agency, what motivates us on an individual level to assert ourselves and take care of our own needs, like get our own needs met, push things forward. Saturn is very much about discipline, which then means that it rules authority figures, the government, but it also just rules long-term effort towards something that you may not see the desired results that you want until way down the line. So it's very much about delayed gratification. So when Mars and Saturn come together, it usually represents some delays, some restrictions, some limitations placed on our own personal will and our own personal efforts. At the same time, it also regulates our actions, regulates our efforts so that we behave more responsibly and we hold ourselves more accountable for the results that we're getting. So if we want something and it's going to take a year to achieve this, Mars Saturn conjunct is giving us that motivation to stick it out and endure for the long haul, right? If it's going to take 10 years, this is an energy where these two planets are kind of renewing their relationship to each other and giving us the ability to stay motivated for a longer amount of time. That's how I interpret this. This can also be with Mars conjuncting Saturn in Aquarius. It can be very much about a lot of responsibility placed on our shoulders as individuals. A lot of responsibility that we may or may not have been prepared for. Hopefully we've been preparing for it because of all the Capricorn heavy energy we've been dealing with since really 2019. it's really been preparing us and preparing us and preparing us, the Capricorn energy, because Capricorn is very much about personal responsibility and achievement and earning respect and earning yada yada. Aquarius is one step forward where it's about our social responsibility, our contribution to something bigger than ourselves, our communities, our society, whatever, our groups, our organizations, that kind of thing. So with Mars conjunct Saturn, this can be a moment where everything we've been preparing for finally lines up, and now we can move forward. This could be a promotion, this could be a personal achievement of some kind where you're being recognized and noticed on a larger platform. At the same time, last time that Mars conjunct Saturn in Aquarius was March. It was like March or April of 2020. It was pretty much the exact time period where lockdowns began in the United States, at the very least. The exact time when the lockdowns began and social distancing became a very common term. I don't know if we're going to see that exact thing happen again. What I feel, some astrologers think that, some astrologers don't. What I feel like what's going to happen is with the Mars conjunct Saturn this time, because it is taking place in the same sign as 2020, I feel like it's more going to be about individual responsibility and what individuals choose to do and how they choose to cater to their communities and their societies, and which kind of ideology individuals are going to choose to hold themselves accountable to. Juno is up there with that, with this transit. And I talked a little bit about what Juno means in my last video, but essentially I think Juno is our public announcement of where our sense of morality lies. It's our set of principles, and it's a very social as in society, which is why it's so public. It's very much telling a group of people, making it an important announcement that this is where I stand, this is what I do not stand up for. And with Mars coming into this equation, it's very much about action, self-assertion, even aggression. And Mars is very much about defense. Venus can actually be seen more as an offensive player because it's about preference, and it's about pleasure and having what we want. So you could really see Venus as more of an offensive player, and Mars is more about defending our rights as individuals, standing up for ourselves, standing up for other people. It's about the fight. So that's something to keep in mind. That's going to be happening in the very beginning of the week. So we're going to really be feeling this energy kind of kickstart. I want to mention a little bit more about what I think of the squares. With Mars-Saturn squaring the nodes, it's going to be a permanent change, a permanent shift in authority, even a permanent shift in who has the control, a permanent shift in how much autonomy we give ourselves, how much we discipline ourselves, regulate ourselves in our own action, how much we step up to the plate. It's going to be a permanent shift because we are trying to either move away from the South Node in Scorpio, or we're trying to not even fix, but heal. I'll just say heal. We're trying to heal the area of the South Node, and we're trying to move towards the North Node in Taurus, and also learn from the North Node in Taurus to bring back to our South Node, if that makes sense. It's about going on a journey and bringing it back home. Go towards the North Node and bring it back home to your South Node, and we're going to be doing that through the Saturn-Mars conjunction in Aquarius, meaning stepping up to the plate on a societal, community level and really contributing something important. Second thing I want to talk about in terms of the main events, the main weekly events happening, we're going to have Venus move into Pisces. So, thoughts on this? Venus has been in a Saturn-ruled sign for nearly almost 5 months. It was in Capricorn, it retrograded in Capricorn for a while, then it was in Aquarius. Now it's finally going into a Jupiter-ruled sign, and Jupiter happens to still be in Pisces. So not only does Jupiter naturally rule Pisces and is currently residing there, Venus is actually exalted in Pisces and will be entering it on Tuesday, sometime during Tuesday, April 5th. Venus and Jupiter are often looked at as both being benefic planets in astrology. Jupiter is very much about opportunity, gaining wisdom. Venus is very much about pleasure, happiness, love, affection, that kind of thing. When they enter the same space, it's going to emphasize all of those qualities even more. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Now, I see exaltations as like it does give the planet a lot more access to resources to make itself strong and cared for and happy and satisfied. At the same time, it can be a little bit limiting because if that planet then is in a situation where they don't have everything they need, they kind of fall apart. So Venus is exalted in Pisces because, of course, Pisces is modernly ruled by Neptune. Neptune has a lot to do with fantasy, dreams, imagination, utopia, that kind of thing. So with Venus, the planet of love, happiness, and pleasure is in the sign of fantasy and dreams. Yeah, that's kind of wonderful. That's kind of very nice. That's magical, right? So these themes will be coming up for us as Venus moves through Pisces. It'll be here probably at least for a month. I'll have to double check, but I think for at least a month. We're going to have it for quite a bit. Eventually, towards the end of April, we're going to see the Venus conjunct the Jupiter and the Neptune in Pisces, which I think I have a lot of thoughts. There could be a lot going on with that, but let's stick to Venus and Pisces. With this energy, wherever it falls into your chart, I think it is going to welcome back in possibly some type of hope, hope in miracles, right? Maybe it'll open us back up to belief in miracles, beliefs in things working out. It'll open us back up to trusting time, trusting that things can heal in time, trusting in our sense of a higher power, our sense of a God, whatever it is for you, a sense of trust in your own inner world, in your own, well, yeah, just trust in yourself, trust in having a peace of mind and knowing that you can't control outside, but you can control yourself, that kind of thing. Pisces shows us the healthy aspects of escapism and the unhealthy aspects of escapism. With Venus here, which is kind of a very hedonistic planet, we're going to be seeing a lot of that. So I think that we're going to see a lot of music and movies and art coming out that really inspire people. We're already seeing that with like Turning Red, Encanto, Luca. Those movies are really great and in a lot of ways really groundbreaking in some ways of what they were talking about and what people they were reaching. So that could be happening. An almost renaissance of a sorts we could be seeing with all this Pisces energy that we're going to be coming into in the next couple of months. I always like to mention that Pisces, as much as it is a magical, hopelessly romantic kind of sign, it also is very chaotic. And the reason why Pisces rules spirituality is because when we are in situations where we have absolutely no control and everything is uncertain and everything is confusing and we don't know how to prepare for what's happening, we rely on religion, we rely on spirituality, we rely on a higher power, we rely on the concept of time passing, and we trust that the unknown will at some point become known. So that might be a big theme too as we enter a more Pisces emphasis time period of this year. Okay, so moving on, we are having quite a significant transit happening starting this week, and it's going to carry through basically all of April, but it's really going to be affecting the rest of our lives, right? Jupiter and Neptune are going to actually go exactly conjunct this week in Pisces. What does this mean? I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this. There's a lot of astrologers talking about this aspect because it is quite a big one. But here are some of my thoughts. Like I said, Jupiter is the planet of opportunity, gaining wisdom through experiences. It's about expanding our understanding of things, expanding our worldview, expanding our exposure to things that are unfamiliar to us. Jupiter can also be, because of that, it brings forth opportunities that we may or may not be prepared for. There's a lot of winging it that comes with Jupiter, which is why it's the planet that rules over a sense of luck. Because again, it puts us in situations where it's unfamiliar to us and we don't know what we're doing. We're unprepared, possibly. We just kind of have to jump in and learn through trial and error. And if it works out, then we feel lucky, right? That's what Jupiter is. In the sign of Pisces, which it does traditionally rule, Pisces is a mutable sign. I like to see mutable signs as being motivated by options, with Pisces being a water sign and a mutable water sign. It's very much about absorbing options and thereby accepting all options, wanting to explore all options, wanting to find meaning and purpose behind all options. So Jupiter in Pisces then can kind of be this overload of opportunities that we don't know where they're going to lead to. And that can be very scary. That can be very anxiety inducing. Combine that with Neptune. Neptune is the planet of uncertainty. It is the planet of spirituality. It is the planet of universal themes. And universal themes to me means that it takes you out of the subjective point of view. It takes you out of your individual body and it's morphs you and merges you with the collective, with the whole, with the one. So a lot of times Neptune can cause a lot of self-doubt because it's not about the self. It's not about an individual ego. It's about the web of people, the collective soup of experiences. And so sometimes Neptune can kind of dissolve attachments to the material and physical plane so that we rely on our imagination, we rely on hope, we rely again on religion, on a higher power, on time. So these two planets are very open-ended planets. They're very much about the future, for sure, but unlike Saturn, where there is a plan of action, where there is a proper way, a respectable and responsible way to move forward, take the steps forward, Jupiter and Neptune, it's like, it's a free-for-all. Like, what? There's no rules, especially in Pisces. There's no rules. What? Who's going to stop us? What's going to happen? No one knows. It's an uncertain time. It's an imaginative time. So what I think that this transit can be for everybody is it could bring on crazy miracles, just like save the day kind of miracles, right? At the same time, it can also bring on crazy amounts of confusion and again, uncertainty, which can lead to absolute chaos. We're already hearing about a lot of cults. I guess there's like this TikTok dance cult that might be occurring. I don't know about it. I just heard about it from another astrologer, so but still, cults can definitely be a part of Pisces energy. Because again, that feeling of anxiety because you don't know what's going to happen, you're going to lean on things that may be illogical, that may be manipulative of your vulnerability. So we can be seeing that a lot more. Pisces also we can be seeing the crazies come out. We can be seeing a lot of people using this kind of empty space where nothing is really being filled up. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of Um, there's a lot of things being overlooked right now. And so a lot of people can use that to their advantage in a sinister way. We could see more serial killers, we could see more murders, we could see more just icky, creepy, weird, uncivilized things happening because of the chaos. So I think Jupiter Neptune is going to be introducing us to maybe an important sense of hope, maybe an important sense of believing in miracles. It'll take us back to, it'll help us learn to trust ourselves, even if we can't trust the world outside of ourselves. It's going to be really great for artists, for poets, for mystics, for people who are interested in astrology, for people who want to come out of hiding as an astrologer or as a tarot reader or as a more spiritual person. I think it's also going to amp up the amount of uncertainty and confusion that we are feeling. And we're going to very much have to trust, again, that what is currently unknown will at some point be known, and trust that that will happen. Just because we don't know what's going on right now, just because we don't know what steps to take next, just because certain things are unclear, they're not always going to be unclear. We're going to find the answers. That's what Pisces is really about. There's meaning in everything. If you don't know now, you will at some point. So don't allow the uncertainty to freak you out too much. Don't allow the uncertainty to cause existential dread in you to the point where you can't function on an everyday basis. I know that mental health plays a lot into Pisces as well. Pisces, Neptune, the 12th house, it's a lot about our mental health. We could see a lot of people actually getting the support and help they need for their for their mental well-being and their overall well-being. We could also see a lot of people breaking down, going crazy, acting unregulated, uncivilized, just kind of going off the walls because their mental health hits such a point where they are breaking down. And I think it's going to be important to show some compassion to ourselves and to these people, because we really are in a moment in history, especially in the United States, where certain systems, certain traditions are really being broken down, and it's necessary and it's important that it's happening. But of course, it is not having structure, not having organization, not having something consistent to lean on currently is really hard. It's going to be really hard for a lot of people. So we can definitely be seeing a lot of mental and emotional breakdowns, privately, publicly, whatever. And I think that has a lot to do with this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that is going exact this week, and for the next couple of weeks, it'll be exact. Last thing I want to touch on that I think is important is that this conjunction that we're talking about is going to be sextiling the North Node and trining the South Node. So it's going to be an equally as significant of a transit towards the nodes as we were talking about with Venus and Mars and Saturn squaring the nodes. The difference between the square and the sextile is the square creates conflict, frustration, friction, so that we have to act. The sextile I see as more of a useful tool. It's very much about okay, you can move forward if you want to, and here are the tools to do that. Our tools being the North Node and this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. The thing that Pisces and Taurus have in common is that they both require a very serene and calm and relaxed inner world. Taurus is very much about tending to your own garden, making sure that you have everything that you need, making sure that life isn't overcomplicated. And Taurus is very much about simplifying and taking care of what you can control. Pisces is very much about tuning out the noise and the chaos of the outside world and going inwards and finding a sense of peace and serenity and calmness within. It's a very meditative sign. So I think the best way to use this sextile is to do that for yourself. Find ways that you can simplify, shrink things down in your life so that you can pay attention to what you can control, because things are only getting crazier. Everything is changing permanently, and we need to have some sense of peace and calm in our lives, or else we're all going to go batshit crazy. That's what this sextile can be really useful for. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Find something in your life that you can have control over and that can give you a sense of calm, can give you a sense of peace. Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to go through some of the daily highlights. Like we talked about, starting off Monday, April 4th, that's when we're going to see Mars, Saturn closely conjunct, squaring the nodes. Tuesday, April 5th, that's when we're going to see Venus enter Pisces. Wednesday, April 6th, we're going to see Mercury in its last leg of Aries making a sextile to Mars and Saturn in Aquarius. I think that this can really help us logically and mentally process the responsibilities and the steps that we're taking forward in terms of that Mars-Saturn conjunction. We're going to feel probably a lot more decisive, confident, gutsy even, and just very action-oriented. Even our mentality is going to be much more action-oriented, especially with the sextile. Thursday, April 7th, this is when we're going to see the moon trining Venus. So morning, mid-afternoon, wherever you are, the moon in Cancer will trine the Venus in Pisces. This might be an emotional day. We're dealing with two different water signs, so it could be a very emotional day. It could also be a day where you find support in people that are close to you. It could be a good day where, something that you really wanted happens, or you can afford it, you can get it. So that can be good. Yeah, I think it could be a good day in the week for us, potentially. We could find support in people, we could find stuff like that. Friday, April 8th is when we're going to see Jupiter and Neptune conjunct for the first time in Pisces. Okay, and then over the weekend on Saturday, April 9th, we're going to see a grand water trine in the air. So basically we're going to have the moon in Cancer making a trine to the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces, and then the south node in Scorpio. And at the same time, the moon is also going to be opposing Pluto. So this could be an intense day on Saturday. We're going to see kind of the moon, the transiting moon is always very much about the daily, personal effect that these transits might be having on us. So with the moon making aspects to this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, this could be when we see some of these things playing out for us. Some of these themes coming more apparent to us in our own individual lives. That could be happening on Saturday. Opposite to Pluto, if you remember from last week, we had moon conjunct Pluto. Or the week before that. Maybe it was the week before that we had the moon conjunct Pluto. So if you remember what you went through at that point in time, kind of the feelings you were having, the emotions you were having, those might come up again in this opposition. The opposition gives us answers. The opposition gives us realizations. The opposition can give us more insight and more perspective. So think about what you were dealing with 2 weeks ago. Finally, on Sunday, April 10th, we're going to have Mercury square Pluto right before going into Taurus. And I'll talk about Mercury and Taurus more next week. But this Mercury square Pluto is going to be very interesting. We had a Mercury retrograde earlier this year in January where Mercury was in Capricorn and it retrograded over Pluto. So Mercury conjunct Pluto happened like 3 times between December and January of last year and this year. So with Mercury coming into a square with Pluto, it's going to bring up those experiences that we had during the retrograde and during the conjunction with Pluto. It's now going to be, again, A transiting square means that it is steps forward, trial and error, putting things into practice. It's about gaining perspective through action. So with Mercury square Pluto, we could be seeing Aries. Mercury in Aries is very much about mentally defeating something. It's a mental challenge that requires our full energy and confidence to overcome, almost. Pluto is very much about primal fears, extremes of human behavior, extreme power, extreme powerlessness, our fears around rejection, alienation, death, endings, violations, that kind of thing. With Mercury squaring it, we're this could be finding the bravery or the courage to talk about really harsh truths, to come forward with something that might be difficult for people to that might be difficult for people to hear. It could be about having conversations around really tragic or traumatic events in our lives or what's happening in the world right now. It's a lot about exposing truth in a very aggressive and assertive way. It can be very much about having conversations, speaking our truth, and saying things, and sharing our thoughts about things that may be difficult for people to hear. It can also be about some information being exposed on a more global level. It can be about data or information being released that is scary, that is worrisome, that might cause some panic. We will have to see. We will have to see. But I think on a personal level, Mercury square Pluto is going to possibly give us the opportunity to defeat some of our own mental blocks, defeat some of our own negative self-talk in the most basic way. So, yeah, I think that that's about it for this week. Thank you for listening and watching till the end. I appreciate it. I hope that I was able to explain some of these transits well, and we'll see about this week. I think it's going to be a big week. I think it's a lot of things are going to be starting to change, and as we go into the summer months, a lot's going to happen. So, thank you for listening to my take on this, my interpretations. I hope to see you again next week. And in the meantime, I do offer readings for people on my website, but if you just wanted to head on there and learn more about myself and my approach to astrology, you can go to my website at ladybitternessastrology.com. I also have a Reddit community, and I'm pretty active on Reddit with answering some questions on different subreddits and stuff like that weekly. I also am an in-person astrologer at Kindred Spirits in Claremont, California, and I offer readings nearly every weekend, pretty much every weekend. You can find me there. If you're interested in talking to me just briefly about my approach to astrology, or you just have some questions about me, I do offer a 20-minute free video call that we do through Zoom, and you can look up that on my website. It's called the Ginger Snap. And yeah, so I hope that you have a good week, and check back in next Sunday. Bye.